on.
All right, would you all please rise and join me for the pledge? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everybody. This is Monday, October 28th, regularly scheduled town council meeting. We have all members of the council except Mr. Maurer, who indicated moments ago that he may join us via telephone late, and Ms. Lapellis is also present via teleconference. Our first selectman is also present this evening. We're going to move on to the consent calendar. Just one preliminary comment relative to the consent calendar. We're going to remove item D. It was anticipated it may be ready for action this evening. However, it is not ready. The same information was provided by Mr. Kellogg at LNA this evening. So we're going to remove D. So absent D, are there any comments or objections to the consent calendar? Seeing none, I'll pass the consent calendar. We have communications A through K, which I would ask be incorporated into the minutes of our meeting. And that brings us to the first public participation session. Are there any members of the public who wish to participate at this time? Seeing none, I will close the first public participation session. We have no appointments this evening. And on to our action items. A is the Committee on Finance, Education, Health, and Public Safety. Mr. Ring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have not met since last meeting. However, the Board of Education is looking for a new finance director. That has been posted in the police department last meeting. The chief's contract went up, and there was a motion made. It was not seconded, so we are in limbo with that. The health department, we just recently did an event. The EDC did an event at Voracious, and Nancy did a great job making sure the citizens of the town were kept healthy. So other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rooney. Moving on to B is the
Mr.
planning.
Chairman, I have a
Yes,
question.
sure.
I don't know if this is appropriate for Mr. Rooney or not, but with the police department, what does that mean, that we have no contract now with them?
So the contracts are devised between the police commission and the town, and the police commission has to approve that contract. It was motioned, and there was no second
Okay,
for the
so,
chief's new contract.
so then do they continue on the contract that they're currently serving under? Is that?
I would imagine the police commission has to decide that.
Okay,
Anything further? Sure.
The chief's current agreement, my understanding, has an auto extension provision in there, so
also it just rolls over until he has a new contract? Is that the way it goes?
That's my
that's my understanding.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, it's
Mr. Selectman.
anyone leaving here thinking that there
That we
was
didn't
nothing
have,
in
that we
place.
didn't have.
Yeah.
a contract, yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Rooney.
Thank you.
Moving on to B is the Town Council Committee on Planning and Zoning, Public Works and Park and Recreation Matters. Ms. LaPellis, do you have an update for us?
No, I couldn't attend.
Okay. Ms. Martin?
Park and Rec will meet on next Monday. That's the only one coming up.
Thank you. C is LNA, Mr. Reed?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did meet tonight. There are several agenda items and new business that we will go over that we reached a consensus on and passed up to council, as you'll see. In addition to that, we took care of some old business tonight. We're much closer at establishing our next version of rules of procedure, which I'd expect would be handled in November.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Strategic Planning, Mr. Formicello, I know we have a date, I believe?
Yes, we have a meeting scheduled for November 7th at 6 p.m. here in Town Hall.
Very good. Thank you very much. EMS Building Committee, Mr. Rooney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, last discussion, we approved at last council the construction manager at risk. So we are currently in the process of waiting for him to complete the plans. The plans, the EMS Building Committee brought the plans with Jakunski Reviews, which chose an architect to 80%. The construction manager at risk was hired to complete those plans to 100%. At that point, we'll have an idea of the complete building with valued engineering and the gross project cost that we could present to the town. So that's what we're waiting for at this point.
Awesome.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Just one quick update that actually Mr. Rooney is not even aware of yet, because it just came across my desk earlier today, is that the preliminary plans that were brought forth to the Inland Wetlands Commission as part of the preliminary process of ensuring that they had their ducks in a row did come back with an approval, obviously with conditions that we would expect, but we did get the approval from that commission. So that process continues to move forward as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to tell you earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Selectman.
Moving on to F is the first selectman's update. Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you. So the document's going down, if it hasn't already. Just a few updates. One was just some updates or reminders really from both our town clerk and our registrar of voters, just about some of the things relative to the upcoming election on Tuesday the 5th. Most of this is standard stuff. I just wanted to highlight a couple of items. One is that the registrar's office is holding a special session on October 29th from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. For our constituents. They are also, there is obviously all-day election day registration the day of election day as well. The town clerk who handles the absentee ballots is going to have extended hours on Wednesday, October 30th, staying open until 7:30 p.m. And she'll have a special session on Saturday, November 2nd from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Obviously, you know, I've listed the usual state rules relative to absentee ballots. An update from just from the Board of Finance in the process of conducting their end-of-year transfers. They made 2 transfers from the UN surplus that were into town funds. I just wanted to make sure this council was aware of those. One was $150,000 to Capital Reserve Fund. That was committed to the firehouse roof project. So recall that we discussed those in the budget process using LoCIP funds for those 2 roof projects. Some word came back, we wanted to be sure that there was sufficient funds to complete both of those projects. There's a concern that LoCIP alone may not cover it, so this is an opportunity to bolster the Capital Reserve Fund to be able to continue to move those projects forward, because they are ready to start, and at least in the design phase. And then second, $100,000 to the Heart and Hypertension Fund, which was a move recommended by our finance director, Ron Bonofsky's in the back there, just to kind of bolster that fund a little bit based on where it stands currently. We want to make sure it was adequately funded. And then last but not least, we had a great restaurant week with my thanks to our Economic Development Commission. The feedback we got anecdotally from restaurants was very positive. The final invoices are still coming in, so I will at the next meeting have a complete report, but it is certainly within budget. So again, thanks to everyone who came out, thanks to our EDC, thanks to our council liaison, Councilmember Rooney, who is very involved in that project as well. We appreciate all the work they've done for that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kellogg. Ms. Martin has a question, sir?
Mr. Kellogg, the Heart and Hypertension Fund, what kind of shape was that in to move that money? What?
Ron, do you recall? I know there was a recent.
It had a negative fund balance of like $4,000.
Yeah. Okay. Can I ask him a question?
Sure.
Is that usual? I mean, to run. I mean, has that happened in the past?
Yeah, I want to say going back about 7-8 years ago, there was a large claim of a couple $100,000 that put it negative at that time.
But nothing since then,
No,
until this?
no.
Okay.
There was a smaller claim this past year. I don't recall the amount offhand, and that did pull it slightly negative.
And
I think we discussed that claim here.
we did, yeah.
Yes. So
So this transfer, are you confident that will cover any anticipated?
At this point, there are no known claims.
Right.
I mean, outside of one that was, that's ongoing every year that we budget for.
Right.
That's been going on since, I think, 1983.
Yes.
Other than that, it's just, you're just shoring the fund up for potential future claims.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. I do have one update on the newly formed committee, Open Space Preservation and Acquisition Committee. I have received finally reports back from all of the member boards that we were looking to fill, so I want to announce that committee this evening. From Town Council, we have Sean O'Rourke. From the Board of Finance, we have John O., so I don't butcher his last name, but there's a lot of letter, Ostraszewski, okay. From Conservation, we have Karen Bernaska. From Inland Wetlands, Clark Gingras. From EDC, Christine Wittenauer. From Parks and Recreation, we have Frank Duchess. From Board of Education, we have Christine Casella. And from Planning and Zoning, we have Mike O'Reilly. So that will compromise the Open Space Preservation and Acquisition Committee. And I will be certain that I, as ex officio member of that committee, organize an initial meeting. And I'll coordinate that with the first selectman so that we can get that up and running. Moving on to unfinished business, there is none. We have A through F on new business, and we will start with the resolution to amend the resolution adopted on March 25th regarding an authorization to issue $5,000 refunding bonds and authorizing the appropriation of those funds. If you just give me a moment. I think I highlighted this one.
Mr. Chairman, I just note there's a typo on the agenda, that decimal should be a comma, so it reads 5 million.
All right, is there a motion to approve the resolution to amend the resolution adopted on March 25th, 2019 regarding an authorization to issue $5 million refunding bonds to refund certain of the town's outstanding bonds and authorizing the appropriation of the proceeds of such refunding bonds to increase the bond authorization and appropriation by $7 million to $12 million? Motion by Ms. LaPellis, is there a second? Second by Mr. Formicella. I would ask that, before we get into discussion, that there be a motion to waive a full reading of the very lengthy resolution that you have before you. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Pellis to waive the reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Formicella. Any discussion on the motion to waive the reading? All right, seeing none, I'll call for a vote on the motion to waive. All those in favor?
Oh, I had a question
Sure.
about, not about the motion to waive, but about the,
We're gonna go
Oh,
back to the.
oh, sorry.
I just,
Yeah,
if you
okay,
want me to
sorry.
read the
No,
it's
no,
just
no,
about
no,
me
no.
reading 6
yes,
pages.
okay, sorry.
And all those in favor of the motion to waive? Ms. LaPellis?
Aye.
Okay, so that motion carries 8-0. So now before us, we have discussion on the resolution, which is printed in everybody's packets. Is there any discussion on the resolution itself?
If I could
Mr.
just start off,
Kellogg,
Mr.
sure.
Chairman, so you recall the resolution back in March, as we went through the process of pursuing the issuance of the bonds for the refunding. Obviously, there's a lot of timing that goes into this. We rely heavily on our municipal financial advisor. We're actually actively in the process now of proceeding, and he has identified and recommended that we make this amendment. So basically, there's an opportunity to refund or refinance, as you might call it, a larger pool of bonds, which will serve to just increase the total savings that we can achieve. The resolution was prepared by bond counsel. If you have any other questions, I or Mr. Bonofsky would be happy to answer.
Mr. Chairman?
Questions? Ms.
Yeah.
Aguilar?
Thank you. Mr. Kellogg, I had a question about and I am not really, I actually don't even know if this is a valid question. So I looked at May 25th, and on the $5,000 that we were doing May 25th, we were getting a savings of $158,000, correct?
That sounds
And
correct,
so now we're $7,000 more with a savings of $280,000. To me,
Is it million?
7 million, sorry. To me, we're taking out, wouldn't we percentage-wise, aren't we saving more money?
I understand where you're coming from. I mean, and Ron could probably answer that more definitively, but you have to recall that these are all based upon, that the savings are going to be predicated based on what the initial interest rates are. So while they're all going to be refunded at probably on or around the same rate of whatever pricing we get, whatever they are issued at is going to vary. So I'm presuming that the ones that are coming up now are probably, there's probably less savings to be achieved than the initial 5 million.
Than the initial.
But Ron, you want to elaborate?
But there is savings.
But there is savings.
There is savings, yeah. I guess my question was just, we were saving more percentage-wise previously than we are, we're saving more money, but less percent.
Correct.
Correct.
So the other thing, the 280 is a low estimate.
Right.
The savings will likely be more than that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and to be clear, I don't think the anticipated savings of the initial 5 million hasn't diminished
No.
significantly. It's just that the savings anticipated from the incremental 7 is not as significant
Okay.
per, you know, from a price per bond.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
No.
All right, we like saving money, so seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Mr. Bellis, aye?
Yep, aye.
And against, I see none, motion carries 9-0. Moving on to item B is the resolution regarding the participation agreement, which is a 3-year extension with the Office of the State Controller for the Connecticut Partnership Plan 2.0. May I have a motion to approve the following resolution? Resolved that Kenneth M. Kellogg, first selectman of the town of Monroe, is authorized to execute and deliver on behalf of the town of Monroe the participation agreement 3-year extension and any associated documents by and between the State of Connecticut Office of the Controller regarding the Connecticut Partnership Plan 2.0.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bellis, is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Rooney. For discussion, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, as you all know, we are currently, the town of Monroe is currently part of the Connecticut Partnership Plan for medical, dental, and pharmacy benefits. We're at the end of the initial 3-year period. We've been anxiously awaiting the extension agreement, which we knew was forthcoming. It arrived since between our last meeting and now, and it is attached for your reference. It's essentially the same plan with an extension for another 3 years. However, unlike the initial 3 years period, we do not have a penalty for early termination as long as we give them 90 days notice. It has been reviewed by the town attorney as well. The only other significant change that is in here is the incorporation of the regional pricing, which we knew was forthcoming based upon the state's budget directives or part of the state budget package that was passed. We knew that was forthcoming.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. Any further comments or discussion?
No.
This was discussed in LNA and it passed unanimously. Seeing nothing further, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I see none against, motion carries 8-0. Moving on to the third item of new business, item C is the resolution regarding the license agreement with St. Jude for Parks and Recreation Programming. May I have a motion to approve the following resolution? Resolved that Kenneth M. Kellogg, first selectman of the town of Monroe, is authorized to execute and deliver on behalf of the town of Monroe the license agreement and the associated documents by and between St. Jude Roman Catholic Church for Parks and Recreation Programs.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pauls, is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Rooney. For discussion, Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this license agreement is very similar to the one you saw approximately 1 year ago. The only section that has changed is section 2 relative to the term and the rent. And that reason being is that subsequent to the lengthy discussion we had last year that arose in LNA as part of that deliberation, and with a much greater collaboration with the Board of Education, we've been successful in getting significantly more space available at the school as opposed to having to go to St. Jude. So we anticipate not needing classrooms. We do not think we'll need space there during summer fun days. This is essentially use of the gymnasium for certain overflow programming, and as a result, we've lowered the cost from what was almost $19,000 last time to under $10,000 this time, $9,200. And as Missy Oro's mentioned during the LNA meeting, it could actually be lower, because if we have the ability to cancel on any particular program with 14 days' notice, if a program has light attendance and we choose to cancel it, we could have further savings on that, because we won't pay for unused space, which we were paying in our prior arrangement. Town attorney has reviewed it, and I ask that you move this forward.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. Any further discussion?
This is good.
One thing I'll say quickly is I just want to thank Mr. Kellogg. Your office did a phenomenal job. You may recall last year, Ms. Oro's came on as our interim director, and there was clear miscommunication, call it, between the Board of Education and the town, just regarding the want and necessity and the other options that were available regarding space. And clearly, there's been a lot of collaboration. I know Mr. Kabza from the Board of Ed side was heavily involved in this. Quickly last year, Dr. Zamery, Ms. Oro's, and the First Selectman's office. So obviously, having collaboration is what this is all about. And using that space for town programming and have it available is a wonderful thing. We're able to save money doing so. So I just want to commend everybody for doing that. So thank you very much. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And against, 0. So that motion carries 8-0. Moving on to D is our resolution regarding the interim operations director job description for WMNR Fine Arts Radio. May I have a motion to approve the following resolution? Resolved that the town council hereby approves the job description for the interim operations director for WMNR Fine Arts Radio.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. Rooney. For discussion purposes, there is a memo from the First Selectman, so I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I will turn the floor over momentarily to Kurt Anderson, the general manager of WNR, who has asked that we consider this position. As he can elaborate further, there is a anticipated retirement that will leave an opening in this in the operations director. However, as they're entertaining some strategic planning and a potential desire to not have, kind of relook at how they're structured, they want to bridge the position with an interim role. So he has brought this to the WMNR Commission, who have conceptually approved this as well. However, pursuant to our charter, as this, even though it's an interim position, because it's a duration of more than 3 months, it does require approval by this council. So this job description has also been reviewed by our Human Resources Director as well. And with that, I will gladly turn the floor over to Kurt for any further elaboration or to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. The floor is yours.
Thank you. WMNR is fortunate. We've had a lot of volunteers over the years, and the paid staff has been very loyal. The current full-time operations director has had this position since 1991 and was part-time since 1984. Again, since we're doing a strategic plan and we want to just have an interim position for a year, HR has informed us that interim allows us, if we don't continue with that individual after a year, that they can't collect unemployment. We are offering 17 hours. The job description doesn't mention it, but it was in the minutes of the WMNR Commission meeting that the pay rate will be $25 an hour. That's typical of what we pay for the higher level employees. I'm getting 28 at the moment, just for the record. I'm suggesting an interim position because I think we've got some qualified internal candidates that'll want it, and they'll be able to fill in while we, after the same person doing the job since 1991, tweak things a little bit.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Any comments, questions? None? Okay. So all those in favor of this description?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, scared me for a moment. And none against, so motion carries 8-0.
I'm still awake.
If you could only have seen that, Ms. LaPellis, you would have had a joke for us, I'm sure you would have. The next one also involves Mr. Anderson. That's item F, is a resolution regarding a donation to WMNR for a generator from Mr. John Babina III. So is there a motion to have this council accept on behalf of the town of Monroe said donation?
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Aguilar, second by Ms. LaPellis. For discussion purposes, Mr. Anderson, if you want to have the floor, if you want to discuss this at all, you're welcome to.
Well, don't you usually say something now?
I'd be happy to say so. I just want to thank not just Mr. Babina for offering the town this generator, but also to Mr. Anderson for doing some legwork that I insisted upon before bringing it to this council to ensure that the generator was inspected and that we have in your packet documentation that it is suitable for the intended use and that it can be serviced and that it's in good working order and will fall within, we're not otherwise accepting something that would be questionable,
I
so.
should have known you would have had a nice, eloquent delivery, Mr. First
Well,
Selectman.
not
Anyway,
necessarily.
our donations are on our agenda because we really want to show our thanks and appreciation as a formal body, and that's typically what we do. So thank you very much on behalf of the full council to Mr. Babina for allowing those purposes to be served here. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And against, that motion carries 8-0. Our last agenda item is similar in nature. It is a resolution regarding the donation to the Emergency Medical Services for equipment from the Mellon Foundation Incorporated. Specifically, it is a $1,500 donation. Is there a motion to accept said donation?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. Rooney. Again, it is on our agenda to show our appreciation and thanks for such a gratuitous donation. So we thank the Mellon Foundation for their very frequent donations to this town. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. Second public participation, anybody? Seeing none, I'll close the second public participation. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pellis, second by Mr. Rooney. All those in favor? Motion carries 8-0. Good evening. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.